maybe beautiful between the two of you. I don't know. I watch it back and I don't have the same attachment now because I just don't, and we've been through so much hell. But
Hey guys, and welcome to Dark Arts Podcast, a special one that we're doing for you today. It's meant to do yesterday, but Wi-Fi wasn't working when you're in Ghana. It ain't easy. But listen, we are going to give you guys a special live today. Yeah, we're talking to you guys about Ultimatum Season 3. We're going to be breaking down some of the manipulation that actually happened this particular season. So if you are watching us from Little Black Book, it will break this off live up in about 15 minutes or so, and it will go on to a Dark Arts Podcast only video. So I'll put a link in the chat for you guys. But listen, today we're talking about manipulation. I won't be alone. I'll be joined by Elsid in a few moments. I want to let you guys know, listen, whenever we do these videos, what I really wanted to do to showcase you guys is that manipulation exists in many different forms. Many times in this channel on Dark Arts, what we're trying to expose is we're exposing how people use manipulation in many different ways. The best manipulation is the one that you don't see. The best manipulation is the one where you get conned and you think the other person's the villain on their own. The best one is when you can look at somebody, for instance, like Sandy, and look at Nick, but you only see Nick and don't necessarily see Sandy and what she did in that space. The best manipulators are like JR, but then the better ones are like Zaina, who then, with a nail on a chip, tells you that she had a conversation with JR, but doesn't explain how the conversation was told about Arya and Scotty, and somehow it was JR who then said what he said to Caleb. I mean to Scotty, right? So there's people here who manipulate, are very, very clever. In fact, same way Scotty being manipulative with Arya, consistently always shutting her down and saying these little comments that throw her off balance, etc. And so there are many different manipulators on this particular show. And what we're going to do is going to highlight some of the manipulations that are happening with many of the cast members. Of course, myself and Elsid breaks down. You saw Dave and Vanessa. There was manipulation there with Dave too. Just because he ended up leaving with Vanessa doesn't mean he wasn't being manipulative. So there's manipulation across the board. So if you are joining us, get ready for an exposing live where we have some really great conversations. Don't be afraid to also contribute in the chat as well. We want to hear your points. We want to hear your perspective. We want to hear what you've got to say. Okay. Now, before we get Elsid on, I'll drop a little intro video so that you guys know what we're all about, because on Dark Arts Podcast, we got to go down the rabbit hole.
You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Okay. Yes, guys, I am joined by Elsid. Listen, on this channel on Dark Arts, we like to expose the manipulation. So I'm going to ask Elsid a quick question, because on Dark Arts, like I said, we're exposing manipulation. And I think sometimes we always look at manipulation as a bad thing. Sometimes it also is a part of relationships where, we play a game in some shape or form, because the word manipulation here really just means to be able to influence or some in other aspects, which can be to control, or it can be to facilitate one's personal aims. It's a method that somebody can use in order to achieve a goal, right? And sometimes, we all have learned some level of manipulation in some sense of the word in our childhood that contributes towards relationships, right? Everybody wants to be quote unquote seduced to do something. Don't tell me you're going to take my money. Just seduce me, then take it. You know what I mean? So these are some of the manipulations that we might end up doing. So I want to just open up the floor. Elsid, this show, Ultimatum Season 3, had a lot of manipulation. So I want to, from your perspective, what was some of this, just as a general kind of overgliding, kind of overarching view, what were some of the manipulations that you kind of saw that maybe other people didn't necessarily catch on that you felt were manipulative in this particular season?
Well, we're on the dark art side of things. What I did notice is people throw out subtlety. We're here for Ultimatum. We know why we're here. And some people throw out subtlety to manipulate or coerce someone to behave in a certain way. Sometimes for me, it's the absence of saying something that gets to me. So while we see the loud crying, it's the folks like the Arya, like, We see some of Sandy, and even Zeta. It's the quietness that we don't really see a lot of, and we don't recognize as a manipulation tactic. Now, I want to preface this: all manipulation is not dark. All manipulation is not, to coerce someone into a negative space. Of course, the ultimatum is to push someone to marry and build a future with. So when we say manipulation, it's not just to, get them a gotcha moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think Ultimatum in itself sets up a lot of this kind of manipulation in the first place. First of all, the contestants on the show are going to be manipulated because the show is set up to manipulate them, to get them to behave in a particular way. But obviously, watching the Ultimatum season 3, I guess we can even focus even on the reunion. But there are many different parts within the season actually where I felt people were being a little bit manipulative, right, in terms of the way that they were approaching certain subjects. So let's start maybe with, okay, who would you want to start with, Elsa? Who do you feel like, maybe one that hasn't necessarily been spoken about that you'd like to kind of tackle and hit?
How about a gentle giant? How about Caleb?
All right, let's look at Caleb. Let's go to Caleb because he was on the reunion as well, and he had to apologize actually for some of the behaviors that he elicited in the show. So we can definitely look at Caleb. Let's go to Caleb right now actually, and we'll break that down for you. Let's play a little clip of what was Caleb.
Because I know that some of the things that maybe you were dismissing for her, Arya told me the truth about. We all have to take accountability in this experience.
First and foremost, I knew what I was getting into.
Well, Scotty was calling out Caleb there for not taking accountability, which is ironic, but we'll discuss him in a few moments. Talking about Caleb, what was it that you noticed about Caleb that you felt like Caleb maybe was using some of the dark arts and manipulation in that space?
For me, Caleb felt if he didn't say it and you don't see it, I could keep it quiet. I mean, that right there is like, if I don't tell her and she doesn't see it and Netflix doesn't show it, I can keep it quiet. But, he didn't count on Arya telling Scotty, or Scotty speaking up for his lady saying, hey, she told me exactly what happened. And, while you're having 2-hour conversations with Mariah in the bathroom in the evening, Arya is having her own conversations with Scotty. But what clued me into Caleb was when people don't say a lot, is saying a lot. And when he told Arya, why would you tell my girl it's more than a friendship? Yeah. I was side-eyeing Caleb the whole time because you could see everybody who's loud, you could see them clear, but Caleb's, quiet. I'm not saying Caleb is going to cheat on her or anything like that. It's just Caleb doesn't tell everything. And Mariah is the type of partner that needs to know everything.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting because I think when you're talking about manipulation here in a space, the manipulation, like you said, is what's not being said by Caleb. And actually, Caleb, and again, it's because he wanted to control the perception that he was going to put across towards Mariah. And I think you eloquently put it correctly. It's not something that's going to be destructive. He's not doing it necessarily to try and hurt Mariah. In essence, his own fear of not wanting to present a certain idea because he was afraid that it might corrupt his relationship, he went into manipulation. We saw that actually in episode 5, I think episode 4 or 5. I could probably get a clip in a second, so I remember correctly. In episode 4 or 5, where he was talking to Mariah, and in the kitchen, and she wanted to go and tell Mariah about the connection that they actually had, and he said, "What for?" He's like, darling, what for? Why are we having to tell my partner what I've said about the situation. Like, hey, look, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not cheating. As he said, you know, I didn't necessarily have I didn't think if I had a romantic connection, I needed to necessarily, you know, let that be known. In a sense, I haven't crossed any boundaries because I haven't done anything. And so in his head, for him, the big thing is, you know, that he hasn't crossed certain lines, but because of that, he ends up trying to control the scenario between himself and Arya and Mariah. And that's where the manipulation actually kicks in, because he's trying to paint a picture across to the other party. And he's forcing that picture onto Mariah. Even though I understand why he did it, it's still manipulation in that space, because he doesn't give the other person the opportunity to see it for what it really is and have a truth of the picture, which is what manipulation in a sense is. It's distorting the picture to be a certain way that you want it to look like. So yeah, I definitely understand that.
And we could apply that to Arya as well, because for all we know, it is really a friendship. So are you trying to tell his girl it's more than it really is? So we don't know the crux of it, but what has me kind of leaning towards Arya is when Caleb said he woke up scared that he was unclothed next to the wrong woman. Okay? Now, with that tells me that you have slept next to the other person, because if you were on the couch, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I see you cringing.
Well, no, I listen. Yeah, you know, he listen. He probably thought he was really, listen. It happens, right? He probably felt there was an attraction there with Arya, and to be honest, he's probably thought about going there, but didn't want to go there. You know, so I didn't discount it against him, but I think it goes back to like that same issue. It goes back to that same point, right? Because manipulation is born from the fear. So oftentimes when we're trying to manipulate certain scenarios, we don't want people to have a certain perception. So for him, maybe in his head, he's thinking to himself, I have thought about it. I've almost crossed the line. It is a threat to my relationship to announce anything, because actually I have thought sexually about this woman as well, right? Which again, like I said, as humans, it's going to happen, right? Like you're working with people at work, you're spending time with people, you know, you're doing this show, Ultimatum, you are going to have those thoughts, right? But the fear is that if I be honest, this could actually interrupt my relationship. When actually, in actual fact, he actually could have been truthful, because he actually didn't do anything. Like I said, he didn't cross the line. We actually didn't see, and that's also confused by Mariah's reaction. But I was like, maybe he actually didn't do anything. What was their emotional connection? Apart from the fact that he lied about the emotional connection line, he actually said the emotional connection. So he did lie about that. But in reality, we actually didn't see any particular behaviors that were ominous of breaking any particular kind of boundaries that were contextual. I mean, maybe doing a touching the face of the face mask, yeah, but that's contextual because they're on the show of Ultimatum. Had they been at home, yeah, okay, I can see what you're saying. But in this instance, there wasn't necessarily any boundary breaking issues, and so that means it's his own fear that's causing the manipulation to happen now, because he needs to try and make Mariah comfortable. But actually, the truth would have actually sufficed in this scenario, and actually just told, listen, hey, yeah, we did face mask painting. Yeah, we had an emotional connection because we talked, and it's natural. We're going to talk. But because he feared it himself, he then projected that onto her. That's where the manipulation comes in, because he's like, I don't think she can handle it. So now I'm going to have to paint a different picture, which is quite interesting with Caleb as well. So yeah, that's a manipulation. I definitely understand that.
Yeah, we kind of saw it. I didn't see Caleb as having any kind of vociferous reasons, but I think the fear, because he knows Mariah, he knows his lady, and I think Caleb Moore was like, hey, let me tell her, because the way you're going about saying that we are connected, we are this, we are that, it may send her in a tailspin and she's alone. So I think with Caleb too, it's kind of like, let's be respectful of the fact that yes, we do have a connection. We, have basically, we have a friendship. It could go somewhere if we were both single, but we're technically not. So let's not go too far. Because Caleb was like, you drag your chair over here. You bring the face mask. He didn't, as we heard from Arya, he did not plan a single date. But Caleb, I'm wondering with his allegiances, since he speaks up for Nick, he speaks up for Scotty. I'm like, Caleb, sometimes you need to stay out of the battle.
Yeah, definitely understand that. I think this is a great time to pivot then to Arya as well, and I'll play a little clip as well for you guys, so you can see that. Let me put on 125 before Netflix come and collect me. Okay, let me put a sound on so you can actually hear it.
That's not a lack. I probably wouldn't say that. I probably wouldn't go with that. Emotional connection. You wouldn't. But
okay, so talking obviously about Arya, because, and I'll show a clip for the reunion in a second or two as well. She was very passionate about trying to expose Caleb and the connection that they apparently had from her side. And there's a lot of feelings on her side about the connection she had with Caleb. And she wanted to let it known that there was an emotional connection, that there was something there. And something beyond just a friendship. In fact, episode 4, if you go back and watch it, ladies and gentlemen, you actually see the conversation that actually pans out. Episode 4 and 5, look at their scenes. You'll see her actually changing her mind. So in episode 4, she actually talks about being in a friendship, and then it shifts in episode 5, where she's like, actually, I'm now developing feelings. I'm now developing this aspect. I am developing these things. And it feels a bit like, maybe you can jump on this, Elsid, that as I'm feeling this, you have to feel this too. Because why am I the only one feeling it in that space? Talk to me, Elsid. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we see the progression of Arya's feelings in what we're shown in this edited, produced show. But I think Caleb saw it early o'clock too. And that's why he's very mindful of what they say. You can say you have a connection, you know, which can run the gamut from friendship to romantic. But when you start saying emotional connection in this type of series, then you're giving the thought that he may leave his girl for you. So he may not propose since he was given the ultimatum. So I'm sure Caleb was like, careful of the words you choose. But with Arya, I do see her falling for Caleb. I do see that. For the, how can I say, the shaky foundation that Scotty is, the you don't know if he likes this, doesn't like it, he's going to be irritated. Caleb is a nice, safe port for her to settle. You know, he's a nice, safe place for her to be herself, gather her thoughts. If she says something outrageous to him, he's not going to go off on her, and she doesn't have to mind her P's and Q's. And it's something to say when you're in a relationship, when you can just be calm, be yourself, and not fear the reaction of the other person. So I think that's where Arya was falling for. This is nice. This is comfortable. This is exactly how I want to progress. That we can speak, we can talk, we can have fun times, we can have difference of opinion and discuss. I think that's what she was falling for. And in falling for, sometimes you fall deep in that rabbit hole. This ain't the man for you. Just because he's a safe space does not mean he's your safe space forever. And I think that's what was happening with her. It's like, ooh, I like him. He's prepackaged. He's already here. Let's go.
Yeah, and I want to play a clip for you guys as well, so you can actually. This moment also was quite an interesting moment too.
And the actual experience. Can I just pause you? There's just so much that was just said. The whole blocking, not blocking, watching her stories. That is news to me, first and foremost. And I have screenshots. I saved that.
That's the part where I realized, I not even realized, but that's where that's why I saw how much manipulation that we're Arya is also operating in this space, because I actually don't know. I shouldn't say I don't know, but I'm going to say that to them just as a phrase. I don't know what she was trying to do in this moment. like in this moment where you're saying that you're seeing somebody watching your stories and you have to be blocked, what are you really trying to say? And like you said, sometimes the manipulation isn't necessarily what you're saying necessarily. It is in the absence of what's being said. It is the implication that becomes a manipulation. It is the alluding to that is a manipulation. It is, well, you fill in the blanks then. The leaving it up to the other person to let their imagination run in that space is the manipulation that happens. And so and again, these are sometimes can be very positive qualities, because we do this in business, we do this in marketing, selling, sales. We do these things where we allow our imagination to work in some of those spaces. In fact, it's part of seduction and attraction. So it's not necessarily a bad thing overall. It is where we use it. Now, in this space where she used it, it felt a little bit dark, just like when in this space here, because it's like it almost felt like, sis, are you trying to say that Caleb wants you more than he wants his girl? Are you telling me that? Are you saying that Caleb really wants you, not necessarily Mariah? Because what would be the need for you to say this information here? If I could understand if you're going to talk about this, the season, and talk about the emotional connection that you guys had, and maybe he wasn't being honest about it. Fine, but she actually took it off the show to say about how he's following and blocking and not blocking, and then he's watching the stories. And I'll be honest with you, many people watch stories just because they want to watch the stories and be nosy, to be honest, and in all honesty. But since you're taking it that way, my thing is also, why are you taking him watching your stories as him also pursuing or watching in a way that actually is more than just, hey, I'm just interested to see what you're doing, just see what you're doing? Why was that her? And so that manipulation was actually quite that was quite powerful too, in that sense as well, from Arya. Go for it, Elsid.
It could be ego. Scotty did say, I don't know a single man that just want to be friends with my girl. It could be ego. It's like, there's no way you could have spent and lived with me for 3 weeks and not come to love me and want to be with me. So it could be, hey, how in the world you went back to your girl and you are denying the connection, so you are obviously lying, because no one has ever left me thinking they're going back to their girl, and I am not on their mind constantly. So it's like, Arya, I understand it can be hurtful, but again, why would you want him if he did turn, from Mariah? I don't think so. But then just be happy for them. Because then if that's the case, then millions of people, billions of people around the world shouldn't be looking at stories and liking. So are you saying that looking at stories and liking is leading to connection? So Caleb can't just continue to look at your stories or everybody else on the show without being a dig. Is she talking about Scotty still looking at her stories? Is she talking about JR or any of the other cast members? No, it's stuck on Caleb. And I'm sure Caleb is not the only one looking and liking her stories. And Caleb, the fact that he even likes it, he's letting you know, hey, I'm here. I looked at it, whatever. Could it be manipulation? Could he be like, hey, checking in? But it's all an interpretation. It's all interpretation. As he said, he likes and watches Zayn's stuff too. Okay. I just, in the social media age, I'm like, the liking, looking, and hidden, I don't see it as, going further. Now she had screenshots of DMs. Now we're talking. But looking and liking, that ain't nothing in my mind. In my mind.
Yeah, no, this is it's interesting, because actually she did say she has the screenshots, I think, of I'm guessing of the him watching the stories. I don't know, did she say about DMs? I don't know if she said that she has screenshot DMs. So there's no DMs, he hasn't driven to the DMs, okay. But again, and this is, like I said, it sometimes the manipulation, like you said, is that sometimes our ego, we want to be liked, we want to be wanted, we want to know that we could have had that person. And sometimes the manipulation is that I could have had you, but I didn't necessarily want you, right? In that space as well. So, or it's like, you know what? I open myself and I start considering you. There's no way that you didn't consider me. You know what I mean? Like, how have I considered you and you didn't consider me? And that, in a sense, can turn into manipulation, because really and truly, again, it's from a fear perspective of not being wanted, not being desired, not being liked. And of course, we know a little bit more of her background in terms of her father as well, and the father being, and the mother and father actually, which we didn't necessarily discuss, maybe we can discuss another time, that they were in an open relationship at one point too. So she saw other women coming in, which is probably also contributed towards that. So that feeling of being unwanted, being discarded, can play a heavy role in how people actually also show up in relationship to actually trying to put across to actually now, existing in that manipulative space, right? I must prove that I'm wanted. I must prove that I'm liked. I must prove that I'm desired. Because Scotty already shown that because he wanted to marry her. So to be honest, it's fine. But with obviously Caleb, he was an enigma in the sense of she didn't like him in the beginning, then started liking him, and then it's like, wait, how are you gonna hold back? How are you gonna be disciplined? How are you gonna be how are you gonna not come after me the way I want to? Which is, again, it can be a bruise to the ego. And so that manipulation can be that you start saying things that you don't necessarily need to say. Like you're watching my stories and the screenshots of that. Yeah. Any other thoughts on the Arya situation? Go for it.
Just a great point, bringing up her parents' open relationship, or as she thinks that someone came between her parents' relationship. It's like, why would you want to come between this relationship now? It'll be curious to know. You've seen what it has done to your family. Why, if he's made a choice, it's a year later, why so much heat a year later about this, knowing what someone coming into your parents' relationship did to theirs?
Good point. All right, audience members, we are at our time limit. So listen, if you're watching from Little Black Book, I know there's like 100 people in the room now. If you're watching from Little Black Book, you're gonna have to switch over. There is a link in the chat as well. Okay, so if you enjoy the conversation, fantastic. Like I said, this is Dark Arts channel where we discuss all things manipulation and exposing the game. And then we've chosen Ultimatum Season 3 to break down some of the manipulation that we saw in this episode. We're still got yet to break down Nick, Sandy. We've got to break down JR, Zaina, Scotty himself as well in that space, and probably Dave as well will probably end up doing. So it's quite a few people we've got to break down. But listen, if you want to enjoy the conversation, you want to join in more, you want to see more, you want to hear more, you got your own opinions, I can see you guys in the chat, then use the link in the description, in the chat right now, and switch over, because we are going to lock off the Little Black Book because it's a Dark Arts special. And make sure you guys are joining us on that side of the internet. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that